Hello, everybody, and welcome finally to this Walking Dead podcast with Caboose breathing through his microphone and me.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what it is. Sometimes this microphone got a headset. It's like sometimes it bends two in, sometimes it bends two out. Silly. But still, good evening, everybody.
Yes.
And welcome to the podcast.
Yes. Our main focus is to talk about The Walking Dead, the show, and the comics. Unfortunately, Caboose knows a little bit more about the comics than I do, but I have not read. Nope. I know absolutely nothing about the comics, but I've watched the entire show up to the last episode. I've not seen what is it? We're on now season 3.
Yes, we're on season 3. I've seen about 3 episodes of it over here in the UK. I've recorded about 5 in the Sky Plus box. We recorded them all, and so far I've watched 3.
Awesome.
Of them.
Yeah, and I've not seen any of them because I don't have TV, so I'm the sad chap who has to wait until it's on Netflix a year later. However... sorry.
Basically, there'll be no season 3 talk in this podcast.
Yeah, no season 3 talk. However, there will be episode 5 of the Games Walking Dead talk, because I just finished LPing that, because I have LP'd the whole Walking Dead series. Which is interesting, because there's rumors going around, and people are, like, very upset, because they're like, oh no, they ended episode 5 with, Lee's death and everything, and then there's this last clip at the very end of the credits, where you see Clementine finding these two shadowy figures, which you assume as Krista and Omid, but it's very possible that it's not. There has been...
I'm about to say, I don't think it is, because you can tell by the look on her face, she looked very panicked. She looked very worried.
Yeah,
so even
worried.
The fate of Krista and Omid is, we don't know why. We don't know why she's in the field in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for your LP, which was brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
Lee told her always keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
But Krista's plan was to stay put in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
So either Clementine was just out for a short distance walk from them, or she's out on her own because she could either A, not find the other two, or B, the other two are gone.
Right. Right, and that's the thing. But you see, what I also notice is I think that scene doesn't change. Doesn't matter what you tell Clementine, because the rumor is that there's gonna be another season that's going to have the main character as Clementine, when either she's just the way she is, or years later when she's all grown up and nothing's happened or whatever. I've not looked into it very much, so I wouldn't know too much. However, if you notice the Lee's last options with his dying breath, there's another one. This is find Omid and Krista. Can't remember what the other one was. And then there's don't talk to strangers. Don't go to strangers or whatever. And that one would definitely interact with Clementine's reaction to seeing those two figures way far off in the distance, because then that facial expression, would have been perfect for, thinking back. She's thinking, oh, Lee told me not to go to strangers. What if that's Krista and Omid? What if it's a stranger? Kind of like contemplating whether she can go off and actually, see those people. Of course, they end up seeing her in the distance anyways, so God only knows what happens to her.
Also, the idea of talking to strangers is probably going to remind her, of course, the whole walkie-talkie incident with the guy.
Yeah.
Who, of course, I thought was a brilliant little twist. For me, of course, the twist being that he was the guy who owned the car full of supplies, so he must have been watching in the bushes as the others took the supplies.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I thought he might have been related or knew Lee for his conviction as someone who, because he was, of course, in the first episode, going to the prison for murder.
Yes.
I thought the guy would have knew Lee through that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he saw Lee, somehow Clem mentioned Lee's name, full name.
Now that's interesting.
So I thought the guy might have knew Lee through that, but I thought that was a brilliant little thing about bringing the station back. Basically, that guy was basically your final judgment of everything you've done.
Pretty much. At least the horde sides of Lee. Because like I've seen 3 other people have different endings to this, and actually depending, now this is what's really really neat about the last episode in that scene, is that depending on the decisions that you've made, the entire last 4 seasons affects that scene, because the things that as they call him, like the camper man or whatever, whatever they call him, he will point fingers at you for 3 things that you have done that is negative to Clementine's safety throughout those 4 episodes, because he's been listening through the radio. Now, I actually thought the same thing. I thought it was because he knew him through the crime that he had committed, which was like murdering the senator, I can't remember. I think it was the senator or the secretary. I can't remember who it was. The state senator, I think. And so, yeah, but no, I totally agree. It was actually a brilliant twist. I thought it caught me off guard. I was not expecting that.
Also, it's amazing the fact that he actually got all the way there when you as a group had to, of course, go through the train and everything, spend the whole day on the train, and he got there first, which was pretty amazing.
I agree.
So he was determined. He was very determined.
Oh yeah, he was incredibly determined to get revenge on everybody.
Also, the head in the bag.
Yeah, that kind of wigged me out. This is how you could tell that he, even though he claims that he would take good care of Clem, and I think, it's obvious that he wasn't, but I think that if nothing had actually happened to him and his family, he probably would have been good for Clem. But because he's talking to this Walker head that is supposedly his wife, and the fact that he locks Clementine in a closet or in a room, yeah, that just gives off the wrong vibe.
Also, as soon as he sat down, I saw the bag next to it. It's like, let's go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. It's gotta be the head.
It's like the 3rd or 2nd time, like, as soon as I saw something in the game watching your LP, I instantly said something. It's like, quickly going, like, when you met those those quote-unquote nice people on the farm?
Oh, yes.
As soon as I saw them, I was like, cannibals. They're cannibals.
Oh, really?
I don't know why. As soon as I saw them, I was just like, cannibals.
Why did you think that? Was it based off of, was there any, like, research that you gathered, or was it just automatic assumption right there that they were cannibals?
I think it was an automatic assumption, because whenever, like, there's an apocalyptic situation, it's an overly nice, overly helpful group who look a bit big, because they were quite slightly for a, quote-unquote, bad apocalypse. And again, Lee, of course, later points out, it's a dairy farm, not a meat farm. Also, the fact that, it was just too... I don't know what it was. As soon as I saw them, it was cannibals. I think it was mainly because of the mother, because again, they were too... Because it's been clear it's been a couple of months since they stopped at a motorhome. As soon as I saw them, being that sort of chubby and overly nice, welcoming them in and everything. And of course, as soon as they see all the bloody tools, it's like, yeah, cannibals.
Just supported your assumption.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting. For me, it would totally caught me off guard. Except for the tools. At the tools, I wasn't thinking cannibals, but I was definitely thinking that's something to do... I don't know, to be perfectly honest. Maybe, like, at the time, my brain was just like, stick with the story, don't make assumptions, because if you accidentally spoil the game, then people might yell at me, kind of a thing. And that's probably why my mind wasn't set on thinking what's actually going on. It was mostly thinking, okay, where are we at now? So, I don't know. Like, the whole time, I wasn't actually thinking that they were cannibals until the tools, and then I was kind of like, getting to that point. But I never said it out loud, so my mind wasn't set on it.
Okay, I think I figured out now why I thought it. And it's because of Fallout 3.
Fallout 3?
Yeah, because basically you walk on, you find this nice little, basically, you know what it's basically a apocalyptic land.
Mm-hmm.
You find these little, like, 3 or 4 houses, and these very, very nice people. But funny enough, the oldest man there turns around and tells you to get away from this place. Nice people in the middle of the wasteland. Don't you think that's a bit funny?
That's true.
And he basically tells you to go and look in the shed. It took me a while to do it because I needed a bit more lock-picking skills, but I finally went back there, opened up the thing, it's like, open it, and bloody mess everywhere.
Okay. That makes sense. Now I have not played.
As soon as you walk out, there's these people with their guns going, did you see something you didn't want to see? It's like, maybe.
No.
Long story short, I may have had to shoot them. Because they were going to shoot me. Self-defense.
Dang, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
So important tip, everyone. If you're in a apocalyptic area and you meet some overly nice people who want to invite you to dinner, run.
Pretty much. Take your group and get out of there. Okay. So, I'm trying to think of something here. What do you think about Ben throughout the entire series? Starting from episode... hold on one second. The trouble recording Skype. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Okay. Interruptions. Anyway, yeah, Ben, starting from episode 2 to episode 5, because you don't actually see Ben in episode 1.
Oh, yeah. He basically had the best intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he should not have done some of the ideas he did, like helping the bandits, thinking that they're going to keep away.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he should have made the others aware of the bandits and so forth. I mean, he can't be 100. I think it was a bit unfair to completely blame the death of Ducky on him, because, again, how was he supposed to know that everything was just going to fall apart so fast, so quickly?
Well, but Kenny's the only one who really seriously blamed Ben for Kaja and Duck's death. Not really. It wasn't really anybody else. Like, nobody else really said anything except for, and mostly like Lily, when she was around. Her main worry was about who started it, who's the one who caused them to be in the situation that they're in now.
In which case, he should have spoke up.
Yes. Although you could kind of tell that it was him in the beginning from when he starts, randomly apologizing. I've even, went back to that scene to see, if you actually full-on blame Ben for the whole thing, will Lily still kill Carly or Doug or whoever it is that you have? And yes, she still will. What ends up happening instead is just that Doug and Carly just won't support you anymore. They'll start yelling at you, but they'll still take the shot for Ben. Although, I will admit that I definitely, even throughout my LPs, I was a bit hard on Ben myself. Just because of the fact that he was the issue, the main reason why they were moving on from where they were. But then again, it would have happened anyway. They would have had to keep moving. Kenny was encouraging them to leave anyway. The bandits would have found them eventually. So, regardless, it probably would have happened anyway.
I mean, that's what I like about The Walking Dead overall, is that whenever I normally watch a zombie film or zombie show, I get annoyed at the characters for doing quote-unquote, stupid things. Like, they take the most unnecessary risks, or they say and do the most unnecessary of things. And I think Ben is the first character to necessarily do that. I mean, first there was the whole bandit thing, then of course later there was the Clementine incident, where he basically left her.
That sure made me mad.
I mean, he could have easily turned around, grabbed hold of her hand, and pulled the Drago, pull along with him, because he went straight for an opening very quickly. And of course that led to I'm trying to remember his name now.
Chuck.
I mean, Chuck. That's it. Yeah, sorry, Charles or Chuck.
It was Chuck.
Okay. For those, because you're all listening, we've actually got a list of characters to help us remember.
Yeah, we do. Because, especially from the long waits of just waiting for episode 4 and 5 to come out. Because I started LPing when episode 3 came out because there was a nice sale on the actual game. And then I had to wait about 3 months for episode 4 to come out, and then 2 months for episode 5. So, which it actually surprised me. I thought it would be coming out in, near Christmas time. But it came out sooner, and I think it was because that it's probably the shortest episode out of all of them.
It definitely does seem like that, because the other parts were you definitely did the other ones in more than 4 parts.
Yeah. I did, and I make them relatively long because everybody wants to see what happens in The Walking Dead, and they don't want short episodes every day to look forward to. So I made them as long as I can, up to about 20 minutes to a half hour long. And most of them I had to make about 6 parts. Anyway, where was I? I was talking about,
I'm talking about characters and how you started LPing with so free, and you made them 30 minutes
that's
long
right.
because it helped.
Yeah, thanks, Caboose. Because I used to make them at about 6 parts long, and then, all out of the blue, this one only took me an hour and a half to record, and this doesn't include the intro and outro that I have. It was just really short. The other ones take me about 2.5 to 3 hours to record, and this one was only half of that. I was a bit surprised at how fast it went, and how, sudden everything, all the events occurred.
I mean, for me, watching, I've just watched them before, because we're doing this podcast, but I've watched them all back to back. Did a quick bit of maths, and it was minus your intros, which is 55 seconds per thing.
Mm-hmm.
Altogether, it was about 1 hour and 46 minutes long.
Yeah. Which is
of course, they're probably going to bring out a thing where the whole game is together, because that's pretty much the episodes are pretty much one game just cut up into 5 parts. They're probably going to bring out a thing soon where it's just the whole thing put together and you get your full 6 hours of gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I think it was about right for this to be that length, because it was the thing with everything wrapping up. It was the final scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And the game did well not to pad any scenes out. It didn't pad anything.
No, it didn't. Yeah. It was really good. I'm quite impressed, although I am a bit upset about the fact that, from when we talked about The Walking Dead before the podcast, about our theories about what were going to happen in episode 5, about half of them didn't happen. We knew that we had a very big theory that Clementine, in the end, Clementine was probably going to end up shooting Lee, and the fact that probably almost, if not all, most of the characters were going to die. And so I expected most of our characters to die, but I did not expect them to die the way they did, except for Lee. That I actually kind of figured out. But at the same time, just seeing how the emotions and the atmosphere just built up on itself in a situation that I knew was going to happen, it still brought me to tears.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I like about Yelping. First was that you actually get really involved with the characters, but the way they got killed off. Ben, the whole thing of the grate just boiling. Again, this is why I probably should never LP game, because I would probably have edited in a goofy yell as he fell into the Yahoo-wee. I would have completely spoiled the mood by bringing humour. But the fact that you can always tell when certain characters are gonna go and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Ben, I thought it was mean, personally, I thought Ben was going to be a walker death. You pretty much always predict people are going to be walker deaths, but you never know. But how they set up their walker death is always clever. It's never just being bitten.
Yeah. Like, there's the way Ben and Kenny both died really shocked me. I did not think that was going to happen. I thought it was going to be something much simpler, or even like something, falling on top of them and then getting crushed or something. But the way that Ben just got stabbed right there, I was not expecting that at all. And then Kenny sacrificing his life, which he technically didn't have to do. I mean, I
was thinking that.
Like, especially for Kenny. Like, of course, he changes emotionally through episode 5 in the beginning, and that's what causes him to stay with Ben. But at the same time, like, they both knew that Ben was going to die. They both could have gotten him out of that spike, and he probably could have lived, or at least lived longer, instead of having to shoot him in the head and then Kenny just getting eaten by walkers. But,
for me, I thought it was just going to be that they pretty much, unlike the show where someone fell off the roof and landed on a fence through his leg, which was a savable accident, this was through his chest, so it's probably through, at least an organ or something.
Yeah.
So I thought, and of course they built up this whole thing about, the gun only having one bullet. I thought they would have killed Ben and both got out of there.
That's what I thought was going to happen. But it didn't.
So I think Kenny's death, as noble as it was, I don't think it was necessary.
I completely agree. I don't think it was necessary. And I mean, if Lee was helping Kenny get Ben out of there, out of that pole that he was stuck in, they could have both done it. Grab the underarms, grab his legs, and pull him straight up. I've seen this happen in movies where they'd be impaled by something, but if you have two people who get both ends and just pull them straight up really fast, then you can get that person out. Granted, the person might not live, but at the same time, at least you would have gotten it done. And yes, they would have been loud, but then at least they could get, behind the fence, lock themselves from the walkers, and they could figure out a system to get him up onto the roof.
Exactly, so as much of a dramatic scene it was, at least one of the characters could have walked away from that one.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we don't know about Christian and Omid's fate. Clem's cause okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the cancer support group survivors? The ones who took the boat?
Yes, them. I don't know, like, they were definitely great people at first. But then of course they just left. Now, to be perfectly honest, I'm surprised that they left, because they knew that Crawford didn't exist anymore, and they knew they were in a safe home. They had plenty of resources, and they had all the...
Vernon saw the herd.
And, oh, that's true. Never mind. Yeah, Vernon did see the herd. But at the same time, I understand why they left, but I don't know.
Where they were was pretty secure. I mean, basically the only reason why the walkers got into that little high thing is because they moved the sign to walk through the storage, to get through the door, they get into the morgue. But to get that sign up against that hole in the wall,
mm-hmm.
I mean, then again, the walkers would have taken ages to get out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's surprising that they took the boat. That was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I agree, especially since, the main guy's name, what was it? It wasn't...
Vernon.
Vernon, yeah, duh, I knew that. Vernon, when, especially Vernon, considering he wanted to take Clementine in.
Mm-hmm. Also, of course, now we don't know the fate of Molly.
Yes, we don't know the fate of Molly, although she was living perfectly well for the longest time on her own with her pickaxe, but at the same time, like, she knew that she was running low on resources, so where was she gonna go?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Molly's situation, we don't know. Maybe we'll find out in this next season if we ever figure that out. That's another question I have is, do you think that if there is going to be another season, do you think it's going to interact with the situations that have been happening in the show?
Well, of course, the major thing that connects, of course, for me, the big question is, does it connect more the comic or the show? Because the show has done slightly different things from the comics, but of course, the main thing this answers questions that appear in the show, for us at least, is one, where Glenn was before he got to Atlanta, and of course, Herschel, how he lost his son.
Yes, it does.
So does that mean his son would later buy his wife or something? By Herschel's wife? Because, of course, the barn was filled with family members and people they found.
Yeah.
So, was that the beginning of the barn situation?
That's true. But
at the same time, the farm looked different in the game than it did in the show.
And how Otis got there. Because Otis is not in the game, and I don't know anything about Otis being in the comics, but he's definitely in the show, and he plays one of the major roles in the show because he's the one who started collecting the walkers. So, what happened there? Was he the one who just, came by right after the other group left from the game and then was like, hey, let's just put him in the barn?
Trying to remember. I know. Otis is the husband of one of his daughters.
Okay,
so maybe. So obviously, one of the daughters probably went to see how Herschel was, and Otis went with her. So.
That's true.
I'm guessing they probably ended up at the farm. I'm just having a quick look at the wiki. According to this, Otis was employed by Herschel as a foreman, so...
That's true, okay.
So...
Well,
that's probably it. They probably went there to see if Herschel's okay, and probably ended up staying there because they realised how more fortified it could be.
Oh, that works. Do you think that, that Rick should have killed his friend? For the life of me, I actually can't remember his name right now.
Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, in the show.
Yeah, in the last two episodes, second episode to the last of season 2.
Oh, Shane.
Shane, yes. I knew it started with a sh. With sh something.
Well, Shane pretty much gave him no choice. Shane was pretty much on the edge. He pretty he was pretty much becoming more and more aggressive. He was starting to question Rick more and more, and he was starting to become more and more hostile to pretty much everyone. Laurie, because of course they had something, and at that point it was clear that she was pregnant, but of course I was unsure whose baby it was. He was pretty much becoming more aggressive. Dale knew he was getting more aggressive, and pretty much when he just stood there holding a knife, pretty much threatening to kill Rick. Rick pretty much had no choice. It was either him or Shane.
Right. Do you think Carl's ever going to grasp that?
I think Carl pretty much does, because Carl's, of course, the one who... I think Carl probably has grasped it. The thing that annoyed me afterwards is when, of course, they explained to everyone that Rick had to kill Shane. Rick doesn't say he was there with a knife, he was gonna kill me, he was gonna do this, he was gonna do that, he was basically gonna do a lot of bad things. It was, I had to defend myself. He doesn't say that. It makes it more out that he just killed him.
Right. For the sake of the group. Is basically what he says in the last episode, is that he killed his best friend for the sake of the group, but he doesn't explain how the situation happened. He tries to, explain it to Laurie, but at the same time, the way he explained it was so odd that even I wouldn't have understood at first what he was trying to tell me. All I would grasp is that he killed Shane.
Okay, very quick. This is where this is one of the few things where the show is different from the books.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand, in the books, I think it's Carl who kills him. They bury him, and later on they find out about the whole you don't have to be bitten to be one of them situation. You don't have to be bitten to turn. So Rick goes back, digs him up, and then puts him down because he's actually zombified while underground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much that's one of the few things that separates the show from the comic, which I think is good because it means the people who read the books don't have, can actually sit down and watch it without knowing what's going to happen. They can't sit there knowing every little bit that's going to happen. Because one of the biggest differences between that and the show, that and the book, is, the little girl, Sophia?
Yes.
She actually lives in the books.
Really?
Yeah, she actually lives a bit longer in the books. She doesn't die at the farm.
That would probably be why that they dragged the Sophia incident, quote unquote, for so long in the show, was because it interacted with the books in some way. But of course, as you just said, she doesn't actually die at the barn. But it doesn't say it doesn't say in the show either that she dies in the barn. She was bit. She turned into a zombie, and then Otis found her and brought her to the barn.
That's a good point. That is a good point because, again, it was one of the reasons why I thought season 2 was padded out a bit because they kept repeating the same things over and over, pretty much saying, we're not sure we're going to stay here. We got to find Sophia. Not sure we can stay here. I don't want you to stay here. We got to find Sophia. I don't think we can stay here. We should stay here. We need to make arrangements. We got to find Sophia. Got to find Sophia. Got to find Sophia. Got to find Sophia. We found Sophia. Oh no. I'm not sure we can stay here. We need to stay here. We need to stay.
Yeah, that part especially was dragged on so long and in the same way that it just got really repetitive.
Oh wait, very quick question for you.
Yeah.
Because you're the one who's played the game.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any decisions you regret doing?
Any decisions I regret doing? I regret leaving Lily, abandoning her. I actually took it back. I wish I could have taken it back. I definitely, I think I almost regretted not cutting off Lee's arm. Although, in the end, Lee dies anyway, and he does become a walker, even though his arm was cut off. I know this
because the infection probably did move up by then, because it was a while between him being bitten and you getting there, so that's probably why.
Exactly, and by the time that you cut his arm, he's already passed out once. In the game, in my version anyway, he has these 4 phases throughout the game where he passes out. When you cut off his arm, he doesn't pass out, but he still has those moments. Except for in the last scene.
So those are the only 2 where you're... particularly the Lee one.
I'm trying to think, because the other decisions that I regret making, I don't know. I'm in some ways I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I just know that different decisions make the story different, but the outcome is the same. And so I know that I could have made, my LP a bit more interesting if I cut off Lee's arm, or if I didn't abandon Lily in the end, or if I didn't support, Larry the way Kenny wanted to kill Larry, even though Larry would have lived. I do regret how mean I was towards Larry, because he even had his own his own understanding of what was going on, and he was right in a lot of levels, but at the same time, the way he presented it was wrong, and that's why I got a bad vibe. I do regret also being very harsh on Ben, because, of course, unfortunately, in the last episode, he finally admits, why he did what he did. And, again, it's reasonable. It was just presented the wrong way. So, right after he yells at Kenny, that's when you realize, oh, he wasn't actually a bad guy. It's not like he did it on purpose or whatever. So you can't really be hard on him anymore. So there's those kind of things where, like, if I made this decision, it could have been a bit different, or maybe I shouldn't have done this because I know this now. It's like those kind of decisions. But I think the major one was abandoning Lily and not cutting off Lee's arm.
I think pretty much with if I probably would have played it the same way. The only bit I probably would have done different is the bite. I would have probably have shown the bite.
Yes. Now, surprisingly, whether you show the bite or not, it doesn't really affect the characters much. They do, Krista does point it back at you. But the thing is if you hide the bite, Kenny will agree with you. He said he
I was surprised.
I was surprised, too. But at the same time, like, that kind of thing does match Kenny's, personality. Like, he would have hit his bite knowing Kenny as a person. But, your instinct or your gut to your friends and your friendship and your trust would say, show the bite.
That's probably the only reason why I would have showed it, because, again, whenever I watch one of these films or something, like one of the Resident Evil films, this guy gets bit, and he's in a group that involves like a school bus full of children and stuff, and he tells no one, it's like, just tell them you're more, sure you're going to get put down, but at the same time, just tell them. Or someone else get bit, it's just like, oh, for goodness sake, you're putting everyone at risk. You're not gaining anything from this. Just tell them.
But then again,
but at the same time, I'm glad the characters didn't resent Lee for not showing it.
Yeah.
And Lee wasn't selfish about not showing it.
Yeah, like
he wasn't like, I'm not going to be one of them. No, he knew what was going to happen to him, and he accepted it and made sure the others knew, in the end, what it was.
Mhm. I agree.
And again, that's what I like about the show. The characters are smart in this series. They are actually smart.
Yeah. That's what also makes it a really good drama show for the actual show, is because, they're smart. They know what they're doing. They have reasons for the decisions that they've made. Whether they are legitimate reasons or not, it's not like they're doing it because they just don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But also we have to pay attention to the fact that we're seeing the whole thing, from the game to the show to the comics, as a third person, in a third-person world. Now, if we were in that situation at that moment where we had, like, a smidge amount of time to make a decision where you can go this way or this way, your chances of moving towards something that you instinctively would say, show the bite, you would say not show the bite, because you don't know how everybody's going to react to it. Now,
exactly.
That's the only part when you're, like, yelling at somebody at the screen going, make this decision because it's the right decision. It's like, well, you're seeing it as a third-person view. You need to see it as the person, as if you were that person in that situation. That's kind of how I tried to base my opinions on. Of course, most of them are like, okay, yeah, Fuzzy, if you were in that situation, you would not have chose that. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right, I wouldn't. But since I was in the third-person world, I made my most, like, moral decision to move on with the episodes.
Which, yeah, like I said, because again, in the end, it's down to what you think, that how you would have done it, and how you think the characters think, because you're basically portraying yourself through the character as such.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Speaking of the decisions, and we mentioned before about the whole Larry one, about the whole, what's intro with a cinder block to the face.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I watched the Zero Punctuation review, and Yahtzee makes the brilliant joke about how Kenny pretty much sticks with you throughout the whole thing, but you disagree with him with that one situation, and he will not shut up about it.
I know, even in the 5th episode, he brings it up.
Yeah, eventually he does, quote-unquote, get over it, but at the same time, it's like, you should have had me back on that one. It's like, for goodness sake, man, it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we focus on the ones getting through the bloody walkers getting through that bloody door?
I know, right? That's the other thing, like, especially when Kenny brings it up in episode 5, when he's trying to figure out, like, okay, we need to make a decision about Lee. It's like, He was saying, we're looking at a Larry situation. I'm like, no, we are not. We are not looking at a Larry situation. Lee is not dead yet. Larry was, according to Kenny, dead. And that's why he made the sudden decision.
And also the decision, because Larry was unconcerned. He just collapsed. He could have maybe have been resuscitated. Exactly. But Lee was bitten. Lee's fate was determined. Mm-hmm. Larry's, you're not sure, because you're not sure if, his heart had truly stopped. Because Lee never actually checked the heartbeat as such.
Yeah.
But Lee himself, it was clear what his fate was.
Yeah. That just nuts.
One quick joke I should bring up. When I was looking through this list of characters and scroll through to the bottom, you actually got a little segment for animals, and they got Maybelle, the cow from the farm, but they got highlighted as blue, which in their index is, oh no, I'm sorry, but that's silly. It is clear what happens to that cow.
I know.
I mean, the farm was pretty much about to be overrun. I'm sorry, unless the cow suddenly stood up, grabbed hold of one of the tools from the back, and butchered every zombie it did on the way out, like Rambo or something.
And the cow was pregnant too.
Yeah, the Adventures of Mabel, the zombie-slaying cow.
It's obvious that the walkers got to the cow.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's clear what's happened to poor Maybelle.
I know. I completely agree with you on there. Now, since we're on the barn, do you think that the brothers should have been killed? Or should one of them have been killed? Or should they both live? There is a reason why you have this choice throughout the entire series, but I'm just out of curiosity. Like, what would your morals be? Obviously, you know mine. I decided to let them both live. And the mother ends up getting killed anyway because she gets eaten by a walker. Mm-hmm. So she becomes a walker herself.
I don't know. I know Andrew was the one left there kneeling, like, after you spared his life. He's like going, Lee, just do it. I'm trying to remember, I'll have to look at the page here. How did Danny die, the other brother?
The other brother, he doesn't, you have the choice of killing him. You can you're at a situation where, because he was about to shoot you, and then you get him to a situation where you have the choice to stab him with a pitchfork, and you can either toss it into the hay bale, or because his foot got caught in a bear trap. So he wasn't going anywhere. So you could either stab him in front of Clementine or stab the barrel.
I would have let them both live. Because, well, it's not like they would have came after you in the end, as such.
Mm.
I mean, he wasn't a bear trap. He was pretty much screwed.
He really was,
And again, it's not like they would have came after you as such, because they would have had to deal with their mother and all the walkers coming around her.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys would have been able to get a good distance from them. So I would have probably let them live as well, because, I'm one of these people that whenever they play a game, you get the option to kill them. Unless it was like a really, really bad thing they did. Again, like, Fallout 3, you get presented with this general guy who took over this project, part of this evil military group, and is basically the guy responsible for your father's death. I mean, you can let him walk away, but at the same time, it's like, he's done all this, and you can't really let this general guy walk, because you don't know if he's going to bring back an army or not.
Yeah, exactly.
I pretty much turned him into a pile of goo.
Yeah.
Literally, I did that, it was a laser gun thing. It was either that or a pile of ash. I went with the goo.
Yeah.
But, yeah, unless it was really bad, I normally let them live, the whole moral thing of don't be as bad as them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. A lot of people think that the choice for whether to kill them or not is unnecessary because it seems like, whether or not you kill them or not, it doesn't make a difference in the storyline. It actually does. In episode 5, when you're at that situation with the camperman, and when you're rescuing Clementine, if you killed the brothers, he will hold that against you. He will tell you that you killed a live person. You killed an innocent person. He claims them as innocent, even though they were cannibals.
Well, he probably didn't know about the accountable part?
Probably not, to be perfectly honest, because he didn't witness all of these events. He heard them over the radio.
Yeah. Which, does that technically mean that Clementine's radio was on the whole time?
I have no idea. When I saw that he was listening to everything through the radio, and that's why he made all those assumptions about Lee, I thought that was wrong on his part, the camperman's part. Because he didn't see anything like this happen. He didn't witness all of the events that occurred. He just made the assumption that Lee was the major problem of the group because he could listen to everything that Lee was talking about to the people that he was talking to.
Yeah, he didn't actually see Mohawk get his legs cut off and throw into a pot.
Exactly. And that's what really drove me crazy.
But then again, he was crazy, and he had a negative view on the group already.
Exactly.
And he feels, and that negative event led to his wife and kid leaving and going off on their own. So, he already had a big dark patch in his mind, dark image in his mind about these group of strangers who just came and took everything they wanted, which led to his loved ones walking away and getting, zombified.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably affected his judgment. I mean, he might have been okay with it. He may have thought differently at first when he probably saw these events or overheard them, but his perception was probably warped after that specific event.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You can't really judge the perception of a guy who walks around with a zombie head in a bowling bag.
Yeah, that's just no. Just no.
What does they do? Like, pull their arms and say hello to my wife.
Yeah, I know, right? It'd be like, what is wrong with you psychologically? What is going on in your head? Okay, we have one more question, and then we're going to take a break from the podcast. We're going to continue. But for time's sake and because of the situation that I am in right now, I'm going to have to leave in the next few minutes. Even though I did tell you my grandmother's still here, and my mom just came in and she's like, you need to come downstairs and be with the family more. I'm like, ugh, okay. So, and I have an hour until I need to get ready to go to work overnight. So,
yep.
One more question, but we will come back. We'll come back and do more because this is great. I'm so happy that I get to talk to you about this stuff, Caboose. It's nice to be on a rant on both sides of a conversation that we both enjoy and know a lot about.
Oh, trust me, once we get into the show itself and some of the other things,
yeah.
It's going to be full-blown rants.
Exactly, because we're just on the game right now. We haven't even hit the show yet. There's more to the show than there is to the game. So, we've got a lot more to talk about. I'm excited. Okay.
So, what's this one last question?
Okay. I'm trying to think here. One last question. How do you think about the interactions of the twists that intertwine throughout each episode? Do you think that it was planned out well overall for the show? Like, because they start with episode 1, then they come out with episode 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, after like a 1.5 year span. Do you think that over this 1.5 year span, they had a good mindset of what they wanted the story to look like for the game?
Oh, they definitely had a good mindset of the game. I mean, they probably, working against Company myself, I know it's like a game, they pretty much plan out the story A to B, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's pretty much the guess now of how to get to that point. And I think they really did that well in this game. I mean, the whole thing, she wants to keep hold of the walkie-talkie, she gets new batteries, and, when you look back and see her, talking to it at the motel, you just think, okay, she's pretending. But then it's revealed she's talking to someone.
Yes.
So it was good. Subtle hints of that thing. When you actually probably look back through the previous episodes, I think leading up to the twist, all these subtle hints suddenly start coming up, and it really works well.
I completely agree. And I like how they threw everything at them. Like, every minute of the story, if things look like they're going well, we're just gonna throw some evil situation here, which is going to have another little sub-evil situation here, which is gonna lead to this thing and this thing. Oh, okay, everything's good now, we're back together. Oh, here's another situation. And it just kind of throws a lot of things at you, so you're not just doing one thing at one time. I mean, in the beginning of the episode, you're thrown into a situation where you're already making tough choices. You don't get, like, an overview to think, like, okay, this is what happened before. This is what we're going to say now. You don't have that time to think, and I think that works, because in that real-life situation, if you were in a zombie apocalyptic world, that's what would happen. You'd be thrown in all these situations that may just not work for you, so then there's these sub-situations where you have to get around it to come back. I do like that. The one thing that I didn't like about the whole, just the game in general, is the way that the scenes worked, because the game looked very beautiful. It was very different. It was based off the comics, which is good. However, it didn't work for most computers. Most computers, if you put that game in there, except for the last episode, each scene would have this immense lag before you get to the next scene, and it does it for every single little scene, especially in the 4th episode. If you watch my Let's Play on it, there are so many times where the game seriously lags, and even though I'm recording it with Fraps, if I wasn't recording it with Fraps, it'd still do that same thing. So it's not me that's making the problem, it was the actual game. The only episode that I have that I didn't really have that problem was episodes 1, 2, and 5. 5 had the one issue when Ben and Kenny were dying, but that was it. And then everything ran really smoothly. But I think that's the only, like, negative thing about the video game that I have to say about it. Otherwise, I think everything was planned out really, really well. I think it was really nice. I really enjoyed it, and I don't know, like, to be perfectly honest, I don't think I'd want to have another season, because then it's just gonna drag.
I mean, they left it open with a clever cliffhanger with, again, Clem overlooking a field, looking at some shells, unsure about what happened to Krista and Omid. She looks, I mean, she's still covered in blood from that situation, so it's clear that she's never had a chance to actually stop and clean herself up. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she sees these two figures moving in the distance. She looks worried, so it's clear she doesn't know who they are, or if they're alive, so to speak. So, as you said, it's too early to bring out, like, news about another series now, because the game developers are probably going to move on to another project for now.
Right.
But so from a new game point of view, it's probably going to be next year or so.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe E3 is next year, or any game show. They probably will bring it up then.
Probably.
Because they're announcing all new consoles and all kinds next year.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I agree there.
As you said, it could be a bit of a push to make a Clementine game, but at the same time, this situation, I mean, we've seen it partly through her perception, how she deals with this situation. So it might be interesting to see a young child's real perception of a situation, and having to grow in this world. I mean, an adult, it's one thing to adapt, but for a child to grow into the world, it's different.
That's very true. That's very true. It just makes me wonder that if you were in Clementine's perspective, would you actually be in her child perspective, or would you be when she's, older, when she's able to, make choices about situations that are legitimate to say, like, how Lee would do it, kind of a thing. But to be perfectly honest, like, why not just leave it at that cliffhanger? Why not just leave The Walking Dead happy as you are with it, even though there's still questions about it? Just leave it be. Because I think that The Walking Dead show is gonna keep going until everybody's dead. Or until they finally, find this quote-unquote cure, or find some way that they can live through this apocalyptic world perfectly safely. Otherwise, it's gonna keep dragging. And when shows like that drag, they don't become as exciting and very good anymore, because you run out of ideas, or you make, like, procrastination shows. That's just my personal opinion on this.
I mean, the comic, I believe, is still going, so the show's got a lot of material to work with. And again, I think Yahtzee, again, going back to Serial Punctuation with Yahtzee and his review of the games, he sort of brings up the things like, what if he didn't want to finish the episodes because, there's either going to be two things: they either hold up in one area, or everyone is dead, and you end up on an island somewhere, or dead. What do you think they're going to happen? Are they going to start a new life? And everyone gets lemonade. In his words, exactly. Which is the good point. You know that either way, they're either going to just end up stuck in one place in the quote unquote perfect livable quarters, or they're all dead.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree. Anyway, that's probably all that we have time for right now. Unfortunately, I would still love to talk more, but I really should probably get going. Sorry for the short notice, Caboose. I thought we would have 2 hours at this. But,
no, it's fine.
But we don't.
I mean, it helps bring up me. So, this covers pretty much most of our views on the game. Next time, we're going on to the much bigger, much more expanded show.
Yes.
Because that's still going.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so pretty much we're going to be moving on to the show next. So tune in for that one.
Yeah, definitely. I hope you all enjoyed it. We'll come up with questions for the show. If you have any questions about the show that you would like us to talk about, please put it in the comments. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I know we most certainly did. And we'll see you in the next podcast. So.
And if you excuse me, I'm going to go and start writing the epic story of Mabel, the zombie-slaying cow.
Yes, we'll start choreographing the story there. Anyway, until next time, guys. Bye.
Catch you next time.